Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 243 of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast, coming live Monday morning, June 13th, to you all over the internet on TikTok, not TikTok, but on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and another service that's here. I can't remember which one it was. But this is a little bit newer thing I'm doing. It's kind of harkened back to an old thing I did several years ago when I was doing the podcast, where I had a weekly run where I just go over everything I learned that week. That's really popular and helped a lot of people. And so I thought maybe Monday mornings I'll just I wake up early, 6 a.m. Los Angeles time, 9 a.m. Eastern, and just kind of talk about the plans this week, things I learned, marketing, business, all this kind of stuff. And so I have a regular segment in addition to the interviews I do and special segments on certain topics. I just did one, for example, on Department of State and the AILA liaison meeting and some notes I had from there, some ideas I thought would be helpful. So we'll see how it goes, and I hope you enjoy this. So it's gonna be live. If you want to comment stuff, if you wake up early and want to do that, it's there. But also, obviously, the recording's there. Most people listen to the podcast version of this. Before we start, I want to really mention the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. Pride and Joy work really hard on getting this together with a lot of colleagues. You can check it out by going to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine. It's really the best trade journal for our practice here at ASC. Colleagues really have in-depth information on practice of law, business in there. It's really helpful. And, they're good people. You can always contact them, reach out, and have relationships with them too. It helps promote each other too, to get more attention, because hard in our field, usually when we go to conferences, the same people talking over and over again. Helps fresh faces to get their attention too. And we're going to talk about the AILA Conference that's happening this week. I'm not going, but I hope everyone's going to have a good time. I'm just going to chat about that a little bit. I also want to thank our sponsor, DocketWise.com, who sponsors a podcast and the magazine for a long time. Very much appreciated. DocketWise is the all-in-one form service for immigration practice management and in case handling. You can get extra 10% off your annual plan by going to www.docketvise.com/immigration-lawyers-podcast and using the code Immigration Lawyers Podcast. They're doing great things and expanding, so definitely something to check out. We have a lot of people who are interested in becoming immigration lawyers. I have a course on this called the Champions for Freedom program. It's a community where we not only have initial training, hours and hours of videos on video training, but we have regular times where we go and talk about stuff and to help make it comfortable. Because when you get starting a new case, you're starting immigration law, or learning a new thing, you really want to ask people about it. You might not have anybody. So we created a group, and we could hear from other people's stuff, and we recorded it as well. In addition, again, to the hours and hours of training material, there's updated CLE training material and also our live office hours we go over it. If you're interested in learning more about that program, just email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. The main course right now is about consular processing, marriage, immigration, adjustment of status, and disability. Excuse me. But we're going to be adding stuff as people want it more as we grow. The key is a community. We're really just a group of people helping each other. So that comes in really handy. If you haven't already, check out our YouTube page for Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. A lot of clips there, as well as the Instagram page. And also, I haven't asked me anything coming up, which means you can ask me anything. If you're a regular listener or a new one and you want to ask questions about my firm or how I handle things or the podcast, a toolbox, all this kind of stuff, let me know once you email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Once you get enough, questions, I'll do some fun. And finally, before we start, I got to do a reminder, this is not intended as individual legal guidance. Please consult with an attorney. So, okay, what's going on this week, the second week of June? I think is 7/14, probably the third week of June. It is the AILA Conference happening. One of the funnest times in any immigration lawyer's life is to go to the conference. Unfortunately, it's in New York. It's too far. I have too many family and work responsibilities. I can't go. My associate's going, but it's a lot of fun. If you're newer, you just got to go to all those sessions and sit and learn. That's where you spend most of your time. After years of doing that, I can't sit in the session anymore. So I pretty much stay outside the door and just talk with colleagues who come and go. And so that's the secondary thing to do, is try to network and just talk with people. It's good meeting other immigration lawyers. It's usually a lot of fun talking with them. So when you're at the conference, try to go out for coffee, try to talk about them. They have a really good party. They have two parties. Like on the Friday night, they rent out a really cool place. So I'd be interested to see where it's going to be. So it's like a surprise. So definitely go to that. I think it'll be family and friends too. Then the next night, usually I leave by that point. I don't go to it, but there's a final party there. But it's just so cool. I just wish it was closer. When I was going to be in San Diego when COVID started, I was so happy. I got an Airbnb there, so my whole family was so excited about it, but that got canceled, unfortunately. I was speaking at that one. was invited to speak at this one, but I'm not going to New York, so it's just not going to happen. Too far, and New York seems like a little bit of a mess. So on news reports we're getting. Hopefully, it's not the case. But that's something to check out there. So it's going to be it's interesting. Like this is if you're trying to hire an immigration attorney, it's one of the worst times because so many immigration attorneys are going to be busy at a conference, not be able to do consultations and stuff. But that's all I had to talk about that. I was going to talk about some things that I learned last couple of weeks. I want to share with you that could help you out. All right. So, FOIA requests have gotten more and more important. Freedom of Information Act requests. This is when you ask the government for documents. It could be from EOIR, the Immigration Court, USCIS, ICE, CBP, Department of State, OBIM for interactions at the border with fingerprints and all this stuff, the FBI. It's really good to get to know this stuff. And actually, the Immigration Legal Resource and ILRC, I think, has a PDF that breaks down this stuff a lot. I've been doing it a lot, but there's some updates happening. Usually, the way I do it is I email the different agencies if I can, especially USCIS, which is the majority of the FOIAs I do. But recently, when I've been emailing them, they've been telling me they're going to be cutting out the email system pretty soon, so that you have to upload it to that special website they have. So I'm going to keep emailing it to the last second I can because I like that system. It's pretty smooth, but it's something good to do. When it comes to EOIR stuff, usually, in LA, randomly when I have a case that has rule history, that they send a CD to you, and it comes pretty fast. But a colleague in a podcast room, Kevin Gregg, who has his own podcast, Immigration Review, he was saying, particularly in Florida, where he's at the Kurzman firm, so a lot of the cases are handling it there. They have a system where you can contact the court and they just give it to you, which is much faster instead of doing FOIA. So that's something interesting that's there. But in general, it's become best practice, and I've been doing it pretty consistently now. I'm always doing DOS, Department of State FOIAs. Sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for. You might not want to know the info I have, but I try to do Department of State FOIAs as much as possible. They usually they'll give you a copy of a DS-160 or DS-260s, but also USCIS and CBP if needed. CBP is kind of all over the place. Like I need entry-exit states. They're not all there, or they go back to a certain amount of time, or they just don't give it to you. It just stays pending for a while. USCIS has gotten really fast. There was a lawsuit for FOIAs, and right now I'm getting USCIS FOIAs back in like 45 days, which is incredible. It used to be like 6 or 8 months. So speaking of how long things are taking, the Ombudsman said there was a claim that someone said, there's two things. One is I was reading an Ombudsman's report where they said that if a person is overseas and they shouldn't use an online system for filing like an I-90 or an M-400, they got to do that paper. Now, I've had people overseas file M-400, so it's okay, but be mindful of that potential happening. But someone posted on a Facebook group that the Ombudsman's office says they're not dealing with expedites anymore. So if you make an expedite request, that they're going to not handle it or make the request for you. I'm not sure it's true. I don't know the source of it, but be prepared for that because that was always a backup source when things were taking too long. Contacting congressperson and then eventually contacting the Ombudsman and stuff like that. Now, with regards to congressperson, it's a little bit of a mess. I think there's so many people making expedite requests right now because things are taking so long that they're just ignoring us. For example, in California, I sent stuff to Dianne Feinstein's office, that senator's office, and recently it's like they just, for the most part, ignore or it'll be like 2 months before they respond, if they even respond. So I've gotten more towards handling with local Congress people, which used to not be good, but they're better at it now. So that's the direction I'm going to. And I made a request in Texas for not to, so there's Texas, each state has 2 senators. There's one like that more famous one that everyone that dislikes. I'm like, I shouldn't have sent to him because he might be anti-immigration. So I sent to the other person, and I got a letter back like 3 or 4 weeks later on trying to expedite I-130. And it's incredible, like how stupid it was. It said, since you have a lawyer on this case, we can't help you. We're only helping pro se people. Please contact the American Immigration Law Association. They can help you. And I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense. How can they say no to a constituent? How can they say go to AILA? How can they make a difference when you have a lawyer and not having a lawyer pro se? So, if you are doing these kind of expedite requests with Congress people, ideally you'd want to be the lawyer on the case so you can handle it because the clients can't really talk or write proper emails. But it seems like they may help you more if you're pro se. So that might be the better way to go about it. Help prep them, but don't bring up that you have a lawyer because that could be problematic and create these kind of stupid problems. It's unbelievable. The senator's office would say that, but that's just what we're dealing with. Now, with the ASC appointments, when you're doing biometrics, it's just something you got to do for a lot of cases nowadays, both adjustment and changing status or extending status. But I had one case where the client might have been moving. So on the G28, we marked that we want everything sent to our office, and we submitted that. as essentially our office being the mailing address. And we got the ASC appointment notice, and it was listing our address as the essentially as a residence. So the biometrics appointment was made at address from my office in Los Angeles. This case was in Arizona. So that was annoying. Essentially, just I don't like marking my firm on the G28 as a person who gets documents and stuff as much as possible. If possible, I try to avoid it as much because these kind of errors happen. Plus, I hate getting the green card in my office, even though a lot of lawyers get out their office and then give it to the client, because it just creates more chance of someone getting lost. It's essentially sending it to them directly is preferred for me. But in this case, as it's always done during COVID, it got hard to do this. But I just told the client, just go show up at the location, explain what happened. They'll probably let you in. And that's exactly what happened. They just went in and the biometrics location was okay with it. During COVID, this was hard because they're lowering the numbers of people coming in and because they're afraid of disease. That became hard to do. But for the most part, you can just go to any location, just say, let me in, and they'll do it. So that's something there. Now, obviously, a lot of Ukrainian cases happening right now. We've been filing a lot of different TPS and U4U and even adjustment cases. And one thing that happened with the case, and this is going to happen probably a lot to Ukrainian cases because the way they spell their names is the person's last name starts with an I-O, and we submitted it, and we capitalized the I, which kind of looks like an L, I guess, and then O, and now all the receipt notices are coming back with L-O as their name instead of I-O. So just a tip, if you ever have an I, especially at the beginning of a word or something like that, in the forms, I would not capitalize it so they see that period or dot above the I. And so you can tell it's an I, not an L. Because now it's going to create, we updated all in the system with USCIS.gov, but who knows when they're going to fix it, how kind of confusion that is. It's so much unnecessary and frustration for the client. So trying to prevent. Now, the big news it's been for a while, the fact that for C9 EADs, these are people applying for work permits based on adjustment of status, that they're approving the work permits pretty quickly. I'm getting work permits for adjustment of status cases approved like 4 to 6 weeks after filing. It's pretty incredible. Some lawyers are getting advanced parole with it, but for the most part, for me, the advanced parole is not being approved. And I guess the regular timeline is 8 or 9 months right now for advanced parole for a C9 kind of adjustment case. Or taking a lot of my cases, the green card just gets approved in the meantime for the most part, because in Southern California they're moving pretty fast on green card cases. In New York as well, my New York cases are happening fast. Northern California, like San Francisco, is taking a year, so those the advanced parole come in the meantime. But just be prepared. Always check it, because you could normally, I'd have assumed, if the work permit is approved, then it comes with advanced parole if you double file it with the AP, the Form I-131. But that may not necessarily be the case. You got to double check. You don't want your client leaving and getting stuck on something like that. Now, a cool thing that's been happening is because of COVID, so many people have been staying in the United States that a lot more people are able to file Form N-470. So N-470 says that you're a U.S., you're a green card holder living in the U.S. You got hired by a foreign company to go live abroad. And that says like, please let me stay abroad and not have, for citizenship, continuous presence issues. You still have to maybe get a rich permit for maintaining the green card, but for citizenship, don't bother me with the continuous presence issue. And so it's a cool form. One of the weird requirements is that you have to be fully in the United States as a green card holder for one continuous year before you're going to file for this. And most of the time, most clients have international travel at least once a year for like a week for vacation or something like that. So I would always get N-470 consults that we can never do it because a person had not had consistent 365 days physically in the United States. But when COVID happened, everyone was locked in. All of a sudden, this opened the avenue for a bunch of N-470 cases. And I filed one, this is kind of old news, but in January, and it got approved in 3 weeks. So it was pretty incredible on how quickly the N-470 worked in that case. The person was going to go to Canada to work for a subsidiary, and we got it in. And so it was really interesting doing that case and how quickly it was approved. I was expecting 3 months. At the same time, there's another form called N600K. So this is a major issue that's coming out of Egypt, where we have people that are U.S. citizens. Most of the time, they're born in the United States and then left and went to their home country, in Egypt in particular. And later on, they had kids, and they apply for their kids' citizenship through getting them a green card. And then once the green card is issued, they fly to the United States. And the regulations say you have to come and reside with the U.S. citizen parent as a green card holder, and then you obtain citizenship, kind of this mystical, magic way you get citizenship. But they never define what residing is per se, what exactly that means. So a lot of these families applied for the I-130, did consular processing, came to the United States, and then filed for a passport. The Department of State issued the passport, and then they went back to Egypt. And they had green cards for the citizenship for the kids. And when you're a child, you have to renew every 5 years. So they renewed it when they're 5 or 6, and they renewed it again when they're 10. And now in 2022, when they're 15 or so, they're going to the embassy, and the embassy is asking in Cairo, saying, "Hey, when you got the green card and then entered the United States, how long did you stay in the United States?" And almost all these families, they say, like, "Oh, we went there for a week or two, got the passport, came back." And the embassy is denying and revoking all these passports for hundreds of young people, saying that you didn't reside with the U.S. citizen parent in the United States, so you didn't satisfy the requirement for obtaining citizenship, and they're revoking these. And this is, I mean, it's almost like a disease diagnosis for these families. It's really tragic. They thought the child's a U.S. citizen. They have this backup to be able to leave the United States when needed, and they don't have that. And I got involved one family, it's left another, and there's dozens and hundreds of these cases. I'm talking with a dozen of them myself. So that's interesting. And the solution for a lot of them is going to be filing another I-130 and then moving to the United States and residing here. I told them, hey, listen, get the green card, come to the United States, have the child go to school here for a semester. So they're going to school, they're residing here, they have evidence that you're the parent residing with them with school records. And just do it for a semester. That takes care of residing. There's no definition for residing is. And these people have been asking the embassy, well, what do you mean by residing? They're like, I don't know. Sometimes they'll say 3 months. Sometimes they'll say there's no definition. I think going to school for at least a semester is strong enough. And it's like not only file for the passport, but also file for Form N-600 to get a certificate of citizenship. That's that. But there's this other exception kind of case that's called the N-600K. And it, like, wrap your head around how the N-600, N-600K, and 565 and all this stuff works kind of confusing. It took me a little bit. But the N-600K is this thing where you get citizenship if the child is going to continue living abroad. So you have to continue living abroad, the opposite of the other version. You have to be residing. And it's if your parent, was in the United States for 5 years, blah, blah, which a lot of these cases, the parents were born in the United States, left and never came back to live here. But it has this other exception that says if your grandparent lived in the United States for 5 years and is a citizen, like the parent that's a citizen, their parent's a citizen, you can get it. So let me back it up. So we have cases where the child is going to get citizenship because they're living abroad with the U.S. citizen parent. The U.S. citizen parent didn't live in the United States for 5 years, so they can't use their physical presence in the U.S., but the grandparent did. And it's not required that the grandparent have that time in the United States while they're a citizen. It could be beforehand. So we have a case, for example, where the grandparent lived in the United States in the 60s and 70s, and then, went to overseas, had a child. As soon as the child was born in the United States, became a citizen, they left and lived overseas, haven't been back. Luckily, they kept documentation of the 60s and 70s and have good documentation. And we submit that for Form N-600K, show that the child is living abroad with a U.S. citizen parent, and that they intend to live abroad. So they have school, they have house there, and like the parents are working. And then we submit that to USCIS. And, I have one case in Texas where as soon as we submitted it, a week later, we got an email from and saying, we're ready to go. We're going to schedule you. I'm like, oh, this is great. And then I filed another case in Southern California, and we got a receipt, and nothing's moving yet. So the timelines, as always, on USCIS.gov are completely inconsistent as to what the actual situation is. And each office is different. But that was incredible. I was really happy about that Texas case. I'm like, oh, this is easy. And then another family did in Southern California. Now I'm like, I should just send everyone to Texas. It might cost more for them to get a hotel and still live with family or something like that. But that was really smooth how that's happening. So that's just part of the inconsistency. But it's a very interesting kind of case, this N-600K, to know about. Now, moving on to interesting kind of cases that was for the embassy is military spouse cases. There's a lot going on there. I'd had a person contact me. Typically, when I have active duty military spouse cases of adjustment of status, when the interview time comes, we bring the paperwork that shows that the person is stationed overseas, and they just do the interview solo with the beneficiary, and that's okay. I had someone contact me. They had a case in Arizona where they came with the papers, and the officer said, I can't interview you until your spouse is back to the United States and not come back for 2 years. And they had the paper showing that they had just been stationed overseas. And it was surprising. It is discretionary according to the USCIS policy manual whether they can interview alone or not. I was very surprised that they were this hardcore. So this person has a just in case going to be pending for 2 years until a spouse comes back for the interview. That seems kind of ridiculous to me. I would probably get a senator involved. This is one of those things that I rather had a lawyer in there argue with them. Now, the person said they asked the manager and the manager concurred. But, you kind of want to argue with them because that's ridiculous. So it's probably getting a congressperson involved, getting Ombudsman's office involved, This is active duty military. There's this thing USCIS says they have special stuff for military people that make it faster, easier. I found that not to be the case. Just like the U.S. government does in all times, they treat their military soldiers like really badly. And you especially see this in how much income like our Marines make. I do these Marine adjustment spouse cases of I-64s. I mean, they make nothing for the amount of work they're doing. So it's kind of wow. But adding to insult to injury, we have other cases where people are stationed overseas and we're trying to do direct filing with the embassy, where the embassies are just not even responding to us when we're making the crisis in Europe, or that one of embassies came up and said, this person's stationed where we're doing direct filing. And they're like, okay, their station ends in 2 years. When there's a month left to the end of it, that's when we'll do the interview instead of doing it now and getting it out of the way, which is really stupid because once the spouse gets a green card doing it now, they could do expedited citizenship and get their citizenship too. So the embassy is being completely ridiculous, making up these rules that don't exist. But this particular embassy always does that. The client just kind of said, okay, let's just do it the regular way. It's okay. But with filing the I-130 with USCIS and waiting the long way around. But it was so crazy how the embassies weren't responding. We had to complain, do a detention manager, get Congress people involved to help an active duty military case. So just expect the worst. It was so nasty how we have to deal with this issue. Now, on the bright side, satisfactory departure. So when you, this is a completely different topic I'm jumping to, but when you're here on ESTA, you're not allowed to leave the United States. Extend your status. You have the 90 days and almost never can get more than that, except there's a thing called satisfactory departure. I'm not sure why they named it like that, but it's requesting like an extra 30 days because something popped up. And with COVID, this issue came up a lot. And I had a person contact me saying they're about to near their 90 days, but their home country banned anyone from coming who's been in the United States. What do we do? So in the beginning of COVID, you would contact CBP and they would fix it, but CBP stopped doing that. You have to call USCIS and say, I need a satisfactory departure. And then they'll say, okay, we'll call you back in like 24 hours or 48 hours. And they'll talk with you to see what the reason is. And they'll approve it or disapprove it and send you the paperwork or update down 94 or something like that. And that's what we did. We explained in the situation that they can't go back and they give an extra 30 days. Now, CBP will do it in a case where like, you got COVID and you have medical evidence. But for the most part, they'll send you to USCIS to do stuff like that. So I thought that information is helpful. So I'm going to try to make these episodes a little bit shorter on Mondays and just go over some different kind of information I picked up. There's just a lot of stuff. But you're going to see, like, I'll just try to think about now this. I just thought about this last night to start doing this kind of session. So I have like notes I'd taken about things I want to talk about, information on things that help like every type of practitioner about things that I learned about immigration practice. And then I'll share those and just go over like newsworthy stuff that pop up. There was a newsworthy thing that there's a couple of court cases and this and that are happening that are kind of ridiculous, but we'll get into that. I'll keep taking notes. But as always, thanks for listening. Hope you have a great week this week. Have fun at the AILA Conference if you're there. If not, plan out what you're going to do with business. Don't forget your marketing. As always, make sure you do that. Get that new business. Learn immigration law, study, and I hope I can help with both those aspects on the show. If you're interested in learning more about practice and stuff like that, email me. We'll see what kind of programs we can have for you. And check out the magazine, Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. It's really great work. It's going to stand the test of time. I think if you see one of them, you're going to want to go back and read all the back issues and become addicted because there's just so much good content in there. It's amazing. If you haven't already, check us out on YouTube, Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, or our Instagram page. The name is short. I think it's like IME Law Tool, something like that, because it can't fit the name. But if you go to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, there's links to all the social media, the LinkedIn page too, which has some constant information flow coming in there. Thank you for watching. I had a lot of fun doing this. I'll be back again every Monday. That's the goal, to really jump into immigration law, help you all out, and keep this stuff going. All right, so next one, have a good one. Bye-bye.